In 1917, towards the end of the First World War, conditions were so bad in Russia that a revolution occurred. The revolutionary leader Vladimir Lenin had previously stated that the worse the better, the worse the better. But what did Lenin mean by this? Well, quite simply, he meant that radical and revolutionary change could only come about when things were so bad, people had nothing to lose. And history proved him right. In just 10 days, the communist fraction known as the Bolsheviks took over the government and maintained their power until 1990. That's 73 years. And in case anybody's poor at arithmetic, the American supremacy, which began in 1946, has lasted 78 years. Now, just as the world survived the collapse of Russia, or rather its empire of the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, I have no doubt the world will survive this latest disaster and move on. Ultimately, the impact will be most felt in the USA. So I'd like to ask the question, could things get so bad in America that society could change course? I mean, could Bernie Sanders or Alexander Ocasio-Cortez actually lead the nation into a more European-like future where it becomes less violent, less confrontational and more socially inclusive? I have to say, I doubt it. But let's think about it for a few moments. Most commentators think that the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump, has declared war on the world. Now, though currently it's an economic war, not a military one, the impact is likely to be almost as bad. Enough has been said and written about Trump's mental state and his philosophy, if you can call it a philosophy. In fact, the best explanation for his actions can be found in psychiatry, since it's quite clear that he is all the things people claim him to be: a psychopath, a narcissist, with traumas rooted deep in his childhood, which, it seems, is the same for Vice President J.D. Vance. But as they say, it is what it is, and we have to deal with what we have. So perhaps the first question we need to ask is, in what way is the USA different from the rest of the world, and particularly Europe, where it had its roots? Now, the answer to that question can easily be found in both popular television programs and in social media. And here I include YouTube. Here we see the popular pillars on which the American society is built. And the first is violence. If we compare the murder rate in the USA with the other G7 countries, that's to say the richest and most developed countries, the USA stands out as clearly the most violent, with 3 times as many murders per head of the population as the next highest, Canada. To say that television is overwhelmed by programs in which violent confrontation is preeminent would be something of an overstatement, but not by much. Violence comes as a close second to the main pillar, news. But not news as we know it in Europe, but rather news obsessed with business and the financial markets and crime. Elon Musk's wealth is far more important to Americans than a natural catastrophe in some other part of the world. Now, the third pillar is what's known as soap operas. And here I have an interesting comment from an American woman living in the UK.
British soaps focus on the working class. It has been said because audiences at home want to see people that they can relate to and that seems more real. American audiences, on the other hand, want to see the rich, hunky doctors with millions of dollars living their rich lives and having tons of money and glitz and glamour. So the American soap operas reflect this. American audiences often have a reaction of, hey, that person's rich, whether real or fictional. That could be me someday. Because in America, money equals success. That's basically all there is to it.
In all this flood of infotainment, then, we see that the USA is a society obsessed with money, and necessarily so, since everything from good health to education and political power rests on money and how much of it you have. Now, this is in sharp contrast to Europe, where inordinately rich people are despised and the poor are supported. Of course, there are some parts of American society which do not fall into this pattern, and clearly this is so, because both Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez exist. Consider for a moment this YouTuber who has, well, not a business since he makes no money, but rather a hobby of restoring overgrown sidewalks.
We'll get this cleaned up for you. All right.
It seems to me that this is the very best of America, caring for the environment in a very practical way. Unfortunately, he is not rich and so has no power. He is, in the words of the 45th president, a loser. But perhaps his videos are an antidote to the violent money worship prevalent on mainstream media. But 2025 is not the first time America has faced an uncertain future. The Great Depression, which followed the stock market crash in 1932, put millions of workers onto the streets, losing their livelihoods and their homes. If ever there was a time for a serious change in America, that would be it. And frankly, I doubt it will happen now. The worship of money has such a tight grip on the American society that I can see little chance of an underfunded opposition overcoming it. Since 2010, the rich, including corporations, have been able to spend almost unlimited sums of money on ensuring their preferred candidate wins elections. Thus, money really is power. Since without it, you are a loser and you have nothing. It's undoubtedly true that these wealthy donors do not invest for the well-being of the nation. Rather, they invest for themselves to derive economic gain. You know, it's 650 years since Chaucer wrote that money is the root of all evil. 650 years. He knew it then, and we know it now. In contrast, then, we have Europe. Why did Europe develop a social welfare system which we have today? Is this perhaps a case of the worse the better? Maybe. So traumatized was Europe in the Second World War that the people demanded something better, and they demanded leaders who could bring them to a better future. And so today we have what Europeans call a welfare system and which Americans call socialist. And socialism in America has, thanks to the rich and powerful who control television, become an insult, become anti-American. So can an isolated and protectionist America change? I'm afraid I really doubt it. But it's a case of only time will tell. Hello, and thanks for joining me in my video exploration of the past and linking it to the present, seeing if we can learn anything from the past and apply it to the future. If you can subscribe, that would be nice. If you've got any comments, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good day and hope to see you again. Thank you.